Have you ever wondered how extremism begins? What is the tipping point between belief and radicalism? Let's take a journey back to a small European town, where a young man named Amir was coming of age. Born into a devout Muslim family, Amir's upbringing was steeped in the teachings of political Islam. These teachings were not just religious doctrines, they were the guiding principles of his community, the blueprint for societal structure, and they were deeply ingrained in his heart and mind. As he transitioned into adulthood, these teachings took on a new dimension for Amir. They became a call to action, a mission, a cause. He found himself drawn into the world of political activism, advocating for the implementation of Islamic law in his community. He believed that by doing so, he was championing a just and moral society, a society that adhered to the principles he held dear. But what happens when beliefs evolve into something more intense, more consuming? As Amir threw himself into his advocacy work, he began to notice a shift. The teachings he had grown up with, the ones he held so close to his heart, were being manipulated and twisted. They were being used to fuel intolerance, to breed extremism. The same rhetoric he had once believed in was now being used to promote an ideology of superiority, to suppress dissenting voices, and to vilify minority groups. This was the tipping point, the moment when belief was morphing into radicalism. But it was not a sudden shift, not an overnight transformation. It was a gradual process, a slow but steady descent into extremism. And it was happening right before Amir's eyes. But as Amir would soon learn, the line between advocacy and extremism can be dangerously thin. When does the pursuit of a cause become a gateway to intolerance? Trend of intolerance and extremism within his own circle. Once, the voices advocating for the implementation of Islamic law in their community were passionate, but now they were beginning to sound hostile, intolerant, and even threatening. In the same timeline, on the larger European stage, a sinister trend was emerging: the rise of neo-Nazi movements. Initially, Amir dismissed these groups as an anomaly, a fringe element with no real influence. But as their reach spread like wildfire, he couldn't ignore the eerie similarities between their ideology and the extremist views festering within his own community. Just like the neo-Nazis, his circle was beginning to preach superiority over others, suppress dissenting voices, and vilify minority groups. This wasn't the political Islam Amir had grown up believing in. This wasn't about justice or equality. It was about power, control, and fear. Amir found himself forced to confront a chilling truth. The same rhetoric he once believed in was now being used to fuel hatred, intolerance, and violence. He was living in a world where beliefs were being twisted into weapons, where the pursuit of a cause had become a justification for hate. The realization was like a punch in the gut. The teachings of political Islam he had grown up with, the ideology he once believed in, was it not so different from the neo-Nazi movements he had dismissed as fringe? The parallels were unsettling, the similarities too close for comfort. When does the pursuit of a cause become a gateway to intolerance? When do beliefs become a justification for hate? These questions, once echoes in his mind, were now a deafening roar. Amir found himself standing at a crossroads, forced to confront the unsettling parallels between extremism and the beliefs he once held dear. How do you untangle the beliefs that have been woven into the fabric of your identity? This question was the catalyst for Amir's journey of self-reflection. He found himself at a crossroads, caught between the teachings of his upbringing and the unsettling parallels he saw in the rise of extremist ideologies, both within and outside his community. He delved deep into the annals of history, studying the rise of fascism in Europe. He discovered how this political ideology, driven by a distorted sense of nationalism and racial purity, had once thrown the world into a devastating war. Fascinating and horrifying in equal measure, the parallels between this and the extremist views within his own community were too stark to ignore. Yet, his exploration didn't stop at the doorsteps of European history. Amir also analyzed the role of religious extremism in shaping political movements. He examined how religious fervor could be manipulated, twisted into a tool to justify oppression, violence, and even genocide. He studied examples from across the globe, realizing that this was not a phenomenon unique to any one religion or region. The more he delved into his research, the more he realized how political Islam and Nazism shared fundamental principles. Both ideologies were rooted in authoritarianism, exploiting xenophobia, and the desire for power to manipulate their followers. They used fear and hatred as potent tools, turning communities against each other and justifying violence in the name of superiority. This sobering realization was a turning point for Amir. He saw how political ideologies could become a dangerous cocktail of fear, hatred, and division, leading to a cycle of extremism that seemed impossible to break. It was a chilling insight into his own beliefs, casting a shadow over the teachings he had once held dear. Amir was beginning to understand the dangerous allure of ideologies that stoked fear and hatred, but would he be able to break free? This question marked the end of his journey of self-reflection and the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Can a person truly change? Can they break free from the ideologies that once consumed them? This question is one that Amir, our protagonist, found himself grappling with. He had seen firsthand the corrosive effects of extreme ideologies that promised unity but only delivered division, ideologies that claimed to protect but only perpetuated fear. Amir's transformation was far from easy. It required an unflinching look at the beliefs he had once held dear. It meant challenging the status quo, questioning long-held assumptions, and acknowledging the harm that these ideologies had inflicted. But as he grappled with these difficult truths, a new path began to emerge, a path of tolerance, dialogue, and pluralism. Amir didn't just embrace this new path, he became its champion. He began to advocate for understanding and cooperation between different communities, recognizing that the cycle of extremism could only be broken through empathy and mutual respect. It was a daunting task, but Amir was determined. He believed that if he could change, so could others. His advocacy took many forms. He engaged in open dialogue with those who held different views, seeking to bridge the divide rather than deepen it. He worked tirelessly to promote understanding, recognizing that ignorance often fuels fear and hatred. And perhaps most importantly, he modeled the values he preached, showing through his actions that tolerance and respect were not just empty words, but a way of life. Through this journey, Amir found a sense of purpose that had eluded him in his earlier years. He realized that while he couldn't undo the past, he could shape the future. And so, he dedicated himself to this mission, motivated by the belief that a better, more inclusive world was possible. Amir had emerged from the shadows of political Islam and Nazism, determined to build a better future free from extremism. His story serves as a testament to the transformative power of self-reflection and the courage to change. It's a reminder that it's never too late to break free from harmful ideologies and choose a path of tolerance and understanding. What can we learn from Amir's journey? What does it teach us about the dangers of extremism and the power of tolerance? Amir's journey is a profound narrative of transformation. From his devout beginnings, he discovered a passion for political activism, only to find himself entangled in the very extremism he sought to champion. His story underscores the insidious nature of ideologies that preach division and superiority, revealing how they can subtly foster intolerance and bigotry. But Amir's journey didn't end there. His internal conflict sparked a quest for understanding, leading him to confront his own beliefs and challenge the status quo. This process yielded invaluable lessons about the importance of empathy, mutual respect, and dialogue in breaking the cycle of extremism. Amir's story encapsulates the transformative power of tolerance, demonstrating how it can dismantle divisive ideologies and foster unity. Amir's story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of ideologies that seek to divide rather than unite, and the transformative power of tolerance and understanding.